What if good and evil aren't universal truths, but weapons created by the powerless? Nietzsche believed morality was a psychological trap, designed to reshape human nature itself. And once you see his argument, there's no going back. Friedrich Nietzsche stands as one of the most provocative and influential figures in the entire history of Western philosophy. Unlike many philosophers who carefully position themselves within an existing tradition, Nietzsche deliberately placed himself at the end of that tradition. He believed that Western thought, as it had developed from Plato through Christianity and modern philosophy, had reached a point of exhaustion. Nietzsche did not see himself merely as another thinker, adding ideas to philosophy. Instead, he viewed himself as a cultural surgeon, someone whose task was to diagnose and dismantle the deepest assumptions underlying Western civilization. He openly described himself as the destroyer of metaphysics, meaning the long-standing belief in absolute truths, eternal meanings, and realities beyond the physical world. At the same time, he considered himself the destroyer of Christianity, which he believed had shaped Western morality, psychology, and culture for nearly 2,000 years. What makes Nietzsche unique is that he did not see philosophy as an abstract intellectual game. He considered philosophy inseparable from art, psychology, history, and culture, like Plato, whom he both admired and criticized. Nietzsche believed the philosopher must also be an artist, someone who shapes values, not just analyzes them. His criticism of Western culture was radical because he refused compromise. He wanted to dig beneath moral language, religious beliefs, and philosophical systems to expose the psychological motivations that produced them. Nietzsche's critique of Christianity is one of the most controversial aspects of his philosophy. He believed that Christianity was not simply a religion, but a moral framework that shaped how people think, feel, and judge themselves. Nietzsche openly called himself the Antichrist, not merely as a metaphor, but as a symbolic declaration of his opposition to Christian morality. His ambition was extraordinary. Nietzsche believed that Western civilization revolved around the figure of Jesus Christ, and he thought it was time for that influence to be replaced. He wanted to move humanity beyond Christianity by reforming it, but by overcoming it entirely. This was not an attack motivated by hatred alone, but by what Nietzsche saw as a necessary cultural transformation. According to Nietzsche, Christianity taught people to deny life, suppress instincts, glorify suffering, and value obedience over strength. He wanted instead to offer a new set of values, or perhaps revive older ones that existed before Christian morality took hold. He believed that most people live behind comforting illusions, half-truths, moral justifications, and evasions, and that Christianity played a central role in maintaining those illusions. One of Nietzsche's most famous works, Beyond Good and Evil, directly challenges the foundation of moral thinking in the West. The very idea of going beyond good and evil is unsettling because morality is often seen as the core of human civilization. Nietzsche questioned whether our moral categories were natural, universal, or even beneficial. He approached morality from a naturalistic perspective, treating moral values not as divine truths but as human inventions. Nietzsche asked a disturbing question. If human beings are animals, biological organisms shaped by evolution, then where did conscience come from? Why do humans judge actions as morally good or evil, when nature itself makes no such judgments? Fish do not feel guilty. Birds do not feel moral shame. Predators do not apologize for hunting prey. Nietzsche wondered why humans alone developed such intense moral He suspected that morality might not represent human greatness, but rather a deep psychological strategy shaped by fear, weakness, and power struggles. Nietzsche believed that the key to understanding morality lies in the human psyche. Humans, he argued, are strange animals capable of imagination, self-reflection, and cruelty toward themselves. While morality presents itself as something that elevates humans above nature, Nietzsche believed this elevation was often He used the German term Sonderstellung, meaning a special position outside nature, to describe how humans imagine themselves as exceptions to natural laws. Nietzsche rejected this idea. He insisted that humans are not outside nature. They are part of it. Moral judgments, therefore, must be understood as natural phenomena, not divine commands. When Nietzsche examined Christianity historically, he asked uncomfortable questions. Whose interests do Christian morals serve? Why are those interests hidden? What is it about Christian moral judgments that requires disguise? He suspected that beneath the language of love, humility, and goodness lay psychological strategies of control and revenge. Nietzsche famously divided morality into two types: master morality and herd or slave morality. Christianity, he argued, represents herd morality, a moral system developed by the weak, the oppressed, and the powerless. Herd morality values humility, obedience, pity, and in contrast, master morality originates from strong, warrior-like individuals who define values based on strength, vitality, and achievement. These individuals do not ask whether their actions are morally permitted. They create values based on what affirms their power and life. Nietzsche believed Western culture had been dominated by herd morality for nearly 2,000 years. His goal was to revive a value system similar to that of ancient warrior cultures such as the Homeric Greeks, where greatness was admired and weakness was not glorified. Nietzsche traced Christianity's origins to what he called a slave revolt in morality. Emerging from Judaism and spreading among the oppressed classes of Rome, Christianity appealed to those who lacked power in the physical world. It offered them a moral victory by redefining weakness as virtue. Instead of strength being good, Christianity taught that meekness was good. Instead of power being admirable, it taught that humility was holy. Nietzsche argued that concepts like heaven, hell, and divine justice were psychological toolsmiths created to allow the powerless to symbolically defeat their oppressors. If justice could not be achieved in this world, it would be achieved in another. This, Nietzsche argued, transformed frustration and resentment into moral superiority. Christianity's triumph in the West, therefore, represented not moral progress, but the victory of the weak over the strong through moral redefinition. To illustrate his point, Nietzsche contrasted Christianity with Roman morality. The Romans valued strength, discipline, conquest, and authority. They did not moralize power; they accepted it as a fact of life. Inferiority, for the Romans, was not a moral failing, but a practical one. Nietzsche admired this worldview because it aligned more closely with nature. He believed that Christianity replaced this life-affirming system with one that condemned strength and glorified suffering. In positioning himself as the Antichrist or as Dionysus, Nietzsche symbolically placed himself as the successor to Christ, not as a religious figure, but as a reevaluator of values. Christian morality, Nietzsche argued, revolves around the distinction between good and evil. Good means kindness, pity, self-sacrifice. Evil means power, ambition, and domination. Nietzsche saw this as a distortion of earlier moral thinking. Master morality, by contrast, distinguishes between good and bad not morally, but functionally. Good means strong, capable, creative. Bad means weak, ineffective, incapable. Nietzsche believed this value system was more honest and more productive. Borrowing partly from Darwin, Nietzsche argued that human beings have no intrinsic value simply by existing. Christianity's insistence on equal worth, he believed, was a psychological strategy used by those who lacked excellence to restrain those who possessed it. Nietzsche believed that culture advances not through equality, but through exceptional individuals. In any civilization, only a handful of people create great art, philosophy, or innovation. Christianity, he argued, suppresses these individuals by making them feel guilty for standing out. By glorifying pity and equality, Christian morality discourages greatness. It teaches people to care more about moral approval than achievement. Nietzsche believed that if humanity wanted to produce something truly great, it would have to abandon this morality of pity. Master morality, unlike Christian morality, is focused entirely on this world. It is not concerned with heaven, hell, or divine judgment. It does not ask whether an action is morally pure, but whether it is powerful, creative, and life. It values achievement over conscience, creation over guilt, and strength over submission. Thanks for watching.